Good evening. Welcome to the Greenberg Town Board meeting. Tonight, we're going to hear from the operators of the Maplewood Swim and Tennis Club and a proposed, and a developer who's interested in purchasing, the property. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to give the potential applicant an opportunity to talk to the community before he even buys the property or finalizes any decision. Will help, and to hear from the community. We want to get a sense from the community whether they like the concept, and then we could, move forward. Many times in the past, people in the community have said we should reach out to neighbors at the beginning of the process. We should consult with them. We should make them partners in land use decision-making processes. And this is following that recommendation. This is even before an application is submitted, even before property ownership has been finalized. So maybe we should start with Richard Lewis, who represents the Tennis and Swim Club, telling us about the club and why you want to sell the property. And then after that, we'll have Garrett talk about what is the property zoned for, what are the options, and then we'll hear from the potential applicant.
Thank you, Paul. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. So, as you mentioned, I am Rich Lewis, and I joined Maplewood Swim and Tennis back in 1984. My children were so young, two of them hadn't even been born. And for the next 1984, for the next 30 years, until 2016, I was a happy, anonymous swim club member. It became clear during the 2000s that the club was declining. And back in 2015, I decided I would get involved in trying to save the club. The club was declining for lots of macro and micro reasons. And back in the 80s when I joined, there was actually a waiting list, and the club was actually anti-children. So actually, when my daughter, who's now 37 and runs the neurocritical care unit at NYU Langone, was just a baby, we were like one among half a dozen families that had kids. So over the subsequent decades, I think the interest in a private swim club had waned, both in the town and in the county, and the previous management really didn't have the tools or the willingness to figure out what the hell was wrong and how do we fix it. For what it's worth, my background is I had a pretty damn good career in advertising and marketing. I'm also an author of several books, and I've taught branding at both Yale and NYU. So I'm not just some goofball who fell into this position without sort of some preparedness about how to fix something that was clearly broken. So in 2016, when I realized that I couldn't outgrow our debts by finding new members, I reluctantly understood and communicated to the membership as president that I couldn't save the club, that the time had come to sell the club. So starting in early 2016, I first tried to sell it to a day camp that was renting space. And I wasted 6 months because when I found out he had no money. And then I turned to a broker who I was introduced to through a lawyer who knew a chain of assisted living facilities that might be interested in buying the property. So I spent another few months with them until they got mad at my attorneys for being too aggressive. So they walked out. Then in 2017, I met the folks from Seattle who represented a group called Wegman, who was going to build an assisted living facility on the club grounds. And for about 2.5 years, give or take, I thought we were going to have a deal. And what I liked about the deal, or a deal, was that I understood that I would have an opportunity to close the club with some grace, that I wouldn't arrive someday and see a padlock because we hadn't paid our bills. And I appreciated Paul, at the risk of saying something nice about you, I appreciate that when we met 3 or 4 years ago, I told you what my plans were to sell the club because we could no longer pay our long-term debt. And I had the sense from you that we would have the time to do that. And so that's a thank you. Because you know what, nobody gets too many thank yous. So as most of you know, the deal fell apart just a couple of months ago when the New York State Department of Transportation decided that there were too many people who might make left-hand turns into the club and out of the club for this assisted living facility. And despite 60 years of left-hand turns, because the club was created in 1958 by local residents, they nixed the deal. The New York State Department of Transportation said that we wouldn't be able, the buyers wouldn't be able to make that left-hand turn into or out of. So I am an optimist, and I moved on to the next possibility, and I might say the last possibility, because believe it or not, I have other things in my life that I would like to do besides run a failing swim club, which has 33 lifetime members, and due to the pandemic, we added over 60 members this summer, different types of memberships. And it's one of those upside down things in the world that suddenly we were successful. But nonetheless, we have long-term debt, and this club cannot sustain itself. And I would like to close this club up, paying our debts to everybody we owe money to. And I would like to close up this club and create something that's lasting and beneficial to the community. So by some coincidence, I met Valon over a year ago when my deal with the assisted living facility looked like a sure thing, but I liked the cut of his jib, even though he didn't know what a jib was. And some days I'm not even sure what a jib is. But I decided I put him down in my plan B, and we reacquainted just a couple of months ago. And I had a sense that this was an honorable person who had both the faculties and the resources to put up to 18 private homes on half acres at this property. And since then, we've met a few times. We pretty much have a very good understanding of what he's getting into and what I'm getting out of. And I look forward to doing this deal with him. But I have to say, and because he knows, Valon knows, that I've said to him there are backups here, because I've learned, even though I was a pretty successful business person for quite some time, I was not a real estate person. And now, unfortunately, I've become a real estate person. So I have a couple of backups who are interested. Actually, as it turns out, each of the two backups, besides Valon and the idea to build these homes, represents two different religious institutions that I've been that were in contact with me through a broker in Scarsdale. One of these parties would like to put up a house of worship, and the second party wants to put up a retreat in the area. But frankly, the progress I've made with Valon is the farthest along, and I would be pleased to wrap up a deal with him and the community and the town to put together a deal to build these private homes. I also believe, as a marketing person of some repute, that such a development would be beneficial to the community, because I'm sure anybody paying attention to the pandemic knows that there's been a huge outflux of people from New York City looking for housing in the suburbs. In fact, there was even an article in the New York Times 2 or 3 weeks ago that cited Hartsdale as one of those attractive towns. I'm almost done, Paul. You look like you're running out of gas with me. And they actually sent a photographer to Maplewood to take a picture of the facility, and I found that pretty ironic. I'm done with irony. I want to sell the facility. I want to leave it in good hands. And I want Hartsdale and Hartsdale Avenue East or West, I always get confused, to benefit from this possible sale.
I'm just thinking, you mentioned the New York Times article that highlighted Hartsdale. And, I was looking at some of the blogs, and people were saying one of the things that they did not like was that Hartsdale has a reputation of catering to retirees. So if you put, and some people, I just thought of this like 2 seconds ago, some people have said what Greenberg needs to do and Hartsdale needs to do is we have to figure out ways of catering to younger families. And if we have single family homes there with children, this is an opportunity to start moving in the direction of making Greenberg a place that younger families and older families are going to want to move to. Again, when the assisted living was proposed, people said, oh, you know what, we don't want assisted living because everything in the town that's being built is being catered to the elderly. So this is the opposite. This is the opposite. These are families. Many of them will have kids, and they may go to the Greenberg school district. But I wanted to now ask Garrett Duquesne, who's the commissioner of planning, to tell everybody who's watching this what the property can be used for housing is one, and what else could be used for. And I also want to mention that we want to make this a partnership with the community. So if people did not sign up in advance and you're watching it on TV or on your computer right now, you want to speak or participate in this meeting, email townboard@greenberg.com, and we will send you the link and let you know you could participate and speak out tonight. But again, this is a pre-application meeting, sale of the property meeting. So if there is an application, we have to have public hearings, we have to have a review process, it has to go to the planning board. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities to review an application. So this meeting today is not the review process. We haven't started that. So Garrett, and maybe you could also tell people what they should expect if an application is made, what you anticipate the review process will look like.
And only request the link if you're watching this on September 1st. When we replay this over and over again, we're not going to be waiting to send you a link because the meeting will have closed by then. So September 1st in the evening is when this is going out live. So if you're watching it right now, email us and we'll send you the link.
Thank you. Good evening, Supervisor Feiner and everyone on the call this evening and watching. My name is Garrett Duquesne. I'm indeed the Commissioner of Planning for the town. And what you have here, the subject site is an 8.47 acre site, and it's located in the R20 one-family residential district. That 20 number connotes the square footage, minimum square footage for what's known as a buildable lot. So that equates to a 20,000 square foot minimum. What we refer to as a Greenberg half acre, as the acres approximately 43,560. So about a half acre zoning is what this is refers to. So to answer the question, in the one family residence districts, as you would suspect, one family homes, detached dwellings are permitted uses. Other permitted uses are municipal buildings, place of religious worship, elementary and secondary schools. There's a variety of special permit uses such as nonprofit clubs, as is the existing use, nursery schools, group homes, daycare centers, those types of things. So ultimately, yes, anything that's proposed would be subject to a process. Depending on the use, it depends, that drives which board or boards, plural, would be involved. But typically in the one family residence districts, or not typically, but all the time, single family home subdivisions are the jurisdiction of the planning board. And I would just add that on a site like this with steep slopes and things, one would anticipate a steep slope. That's an environmental permit that's of the planning board. There's other type of environmental permits such as tree removals and things of that nature. So that's an overview of the site and the zoning that it's in. Thank you.
How long does a review of an application like housing usually take, and what is the anticipated time? And could you mention the type of public hearings that would be required before a decision is made, and who would make the decisions?
Yeah, that's a very, very difficult question to answer, without seeing a proposal. But suffice it to say that whatever board has the jurisdiction, they looked at all the important factors such as stormwater runoff, traffic, circulation, visual impacts. So all those important things are looked at. Whatever board and whatever project is proposed, there's ample opportunity for public input. There are public hearings. If there's numerous boards, each of those boards would have their respective public hearings. So it's really, I think, premature for me to throw out like a X number of months. So I'm sorry, it's really tough for me to answer that one.
Yeah, we would have to know, looking at the plans, are there any variances that are involved? Because that would cause additional delay. If it's as of right and it's dealing with a subdivision, obviously that goes quicker as long as everything is conforming. We haven't seen any plans. So I have no idea how they came up with the number 18. I don't think Garrett knows either, but somehow they must have figured out 18. And presumably that's a compliant number, and that would make it go quicker.
But when we're talking
Just a
about,
quick note on the number, and thank you for that. That was very, very helpful. The site is R20, as I noted. There's a 20,000 square foot minimum. Typically, the formula that's used for a flat site with no constraints is you take the total site square footage, divide that by the underlying zoning, and then subtract 25% for roads and infrastructure. So I think, you know, if you do that number, it puts you at perhaps 13 and a half. But as we know, you know, the site has some constraints, such as slopes and rock outcroppings and things. But so those are just a couple numbers that I quickly ran before the meeting. Thank you.
but usually, like with an application like this, even though you can't be tied to an estimated time, my guess is you're talking about like probably like a year or 2 years before construction would start. Would that be sort of, you know, accurate in a typical application, or are you talking about a couple months after an application is submitted?
We've seen, you know, there's there are all types of applications. It's all
Somewhere
so much of
between there.
so much of it is contingent upon how complete the application is when it's first submitted. As Councilman Sheehan noted, if it's without variances, you know, you tend not to think of, you know, an application taking years. And maybe you can be in the realm of months. So there's just so many inputs on that, but
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Next, we'll hear from the potential developer, Mr. Nikci.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me, Paul?
Yes.
Thank you for putting this together. I appreciate it. My name is Valon, and I represent Bedrock Company, a real estate development company, as well as a group of investors. The Bedrock Company is a local firm based in Westchester. In connection with developing and improving the Maplewood property on West Hartsdale Road, we are interested in building single-family homes that will preserve the charm and the beauty of Hartsdale. As a locally based company, we'd like to hear from the community, of course, so that we can know what concerns might exist before we consider taking additional due diligence steps in what we consider to be an exciting project. As a CEO of Bedrock Company, I look forward to participating in tonight's meeting and to hearing what the community has to say in support of or against developing the property along the guidelines allowed under the current zoning and planning regulations. The reason we want to speak with you, the neighbors and the community, first, before we do anything else, is that we respect you and we want to make sure you're happy and project is totally fine with you. I also want to assure you that we'll be completely transparent with you and the local government throughout the process. Building a new project there will help Greenberg, I believe, and the community in many ways. One of them will be property tax collected, increase in real estate value of other homes in the neighborhood, preserve the site in keeping with the neighboring single-family home look and feel versus some other possible land use. The 9-acre property is zoned for half-acre, as Garrett said, single-family development, which suggests that at the maximum 18 homes. We came up with that number because of the half-acre per property, but like Garrett said, it'll definitely be less than 18. But more realistic, given the gradient of the property, the improved infrastructure needs and all local priorities, the number of houses definitely will be less. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me at valon@bedrockcompany.com. Again, valon@bedrockcompany.com. We are in a very, very initial stages. Before we do, again, any due diligence any further, we want to speak to community and see if there's any objections, and then we'll take it to the next step. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Do you have any estimate on, you know, the range of how much the homes will be going for?
Well, if we do simple comps in today's market, I would say 2,000 to 2,200 in Hartsdale would be around $850,000 to $950,000. As you know, Hartsdale is a great community, but the schools are not 10 out of 10. So, I mean, based on our simple comps, initial comps, that's what the numbers are. And that will definitely increase the value of the property, of the neighborhood, of course.
Okay. Are there any residents of the town who would like to ask questions or?
If it's helpful, if someone would like to use the chat function, and you can chat to me and I can alert the supervisor, or it does look like ETG at Flash Force had their hand up. I guess that works too. I'm just trying to facilitate.
Yeah, why don't you be the moderator, Garrett?
Okay, ma'am. If you could unmute yourself. You're muted there. I'm going to ask to unmute.
And hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, good. I'm Elaine Taylor Gordon, and my email is up there should you wish to reach me, but I have no idea how that happened. I'm very much for this project. I think single-family homes is exactly what we need. Number one, especially if they're going to be commensurate with the other homes in the area. In some cases, they're going to be more valuable than many of the homes in the area. Half-acre plots are certainly ample in today's world. But I think it's very important to bring new blood into Hartsdale. I think what Valon just said about having families is a good idea. We need more children in the school system to support the school system. We need more taxes in the area, which we would not have with a retreat or a house of worship, which would make me not so eager to have that kind of development. And I think that having 18 households, adding to the traffic there would not be onerous by any means at all. Certainly as a swim club, we would have had more traffic. So if you figure that there are four people per family and that the kids are not driving, I don't think that's excessive at all. I think that's the best that we could hope for. And I have a feeling that Valon, you're going to do a good job of building. So I would definitely support you. And I don't live in the Maplewood area. I'm in Hartsdale Estates, which is across the street on the other side of Ridge Road, near Topland and Hawthorne and Cross Hill, where I live. And I think we would welcome that kind of involvement.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Anybody else? No interruptions.
Mr. Bowden asked to speak.
My name is Murray Bowden. At the present time, I'm preparing to challenge New York State DOT on the way they do analysis of road lines. What they did to the last development was about 50 years outdated. I'm in favor of this development, and I will work diligently to bring New York State DOT into the world of post-virus. What happened over the last 50 years. DOT uses lines that are just illegal, and I've raised a couple of challenges to it. Garrett knows about them because he gets a copy of all my emails in regard to that. I'm in favor of this, and I will actively work to help you do it. And I really would like to have your email address so that I can include you in some of the correspondence regarding the bringing New York State Department of Transportation into the current world.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Garrett, can you send the text email address in the chat? I don't think I can send it to everybody.
Sure, I can email you that tomorrow. I have your email. I see Miss Ashley would like to speak. Dora?
Good evening. My name is Dora Ashley, and I live very close to the Maplewood facility. Residents who live near the facility would prefer single-family homes. Our concern is, of course, the extent of blasting and how it would affect us. And right now, the area is completely green. So the homes which are very close to the property would insist that the new tree law is followed, so that the trees which would be taken down that are replaced. So as long as the laws are followed, particularly the tree law, I think, of course, we would have to see how the plans that you will be proposing, what kind of plans you're proposing, but generally, I think the consensus is that single-family homes would be the best solution for us.
That's good. I just want to mention that the town has a very strong blasting law. We've had the law on the books for many years. It was one of the first things that we did when I first became supervisor under John Lucido's leadership when he was building inspector, and we really haven't had complaints about blasting. Very few complaints since I've been in office. So this is an issue that we are concerned about people's quality of life, and we would work with the neighborhood and the developer to minimize the construction impacts. But I think that people have to realize that at some point something's going to go into that property, so there will be construction noise, and no matter what's built, there will be some some inconveniences, but we'll do whatever we can to make this as smooth a process as possible and a transparent process.
And one of the things that is also an issue that would have to be looked at is the water runoff, because so that the lower properties don't get flooded. That is already now an issue, so that will have to be part of the plan, mitigation of the water runoff.
Well, it certainly sounds like they're willing to build according to our code, and obviously stormwater would be part of what is addressed during the review process. But by staying within code compliance, this becomes a much shorter process than getting the zoning board and potentially the town board involved in changes to whatever is currently required. So it sounds like they want to build a code compliant development, which means that they basically have a right to do what they're asking to do. So you don't really need the neighborhood so much if you're going to build as to what the code says you can build, subject to environmental review and things like that. So it's encouraging, but again, this is basically in the ether because there are no plans. We're just talking. It's when you lay it out. I was a little concerned with the 18, but I think you understand the 18. You actually have to have roadways to the houses, so that comes out of the 18. And so it'll be interesting to see an actual plan.
Right, but I think one of the nice things about this is we're starting. If we make this a partnership with the community and the developer, and we're all working together, I really feel that the process will be a good one. And I think that, we'll all work together to have the best, possible, outcome that will enhance property values and enhance the quality of life for residents.
Yeah, this is Ed Hamill, and we share a property line with Maplewood. And we are in support of this. We believe that this is probably the best use of the property, given the other uses that are available that are being considered, and certainly that were considered initially with the assisted living facility. So we, as neighbors and as sharing the same boundaries, we're in favor of a single family development.
Thank you. Thank you.
Valon, thank you for sending me your email. I will send that to Mr. Bowden in the chat if you want to send your email to the whole group. If you're so inclined, that'd be nice. And just really quickly on the 10 of 10 comment with regard to this school, you know, I think I don't know, there may not be any schools in the country that hit the 10 of 10. You know, any governmental organization, we're always striving to improve, but I would just a quick comment. All my, you know, any student that I've interacted with from the school district, I'm just immensely and thoroughly impressed, and ditto that when I speak with administrators and teachers and faculty. So I just wanted to quickly note that.
Yeah, and I'd like to just agree with you. You know, I've worked with a lot of student interns from the Greenberg School District, and you know, many of them are so smart, very articulate. You know, really, you know, I think are going to have super successful, you know, careers. And you know, I've always felt that the Greenberg School District is, you know, is underrated. You know, there could be some students who aren't excelling as much, and we focus on, you know, the negative, or the public focuses on the negatives. But again, you know, I've met students who have gone to Ivy League schools. There's a graduate who is now a member of the U.S. You know, Congress. People have had enormously successful careers, and again, maybe if this housing complex is built, we'll have a future governor from Hartsdale.
Well, how familiar is Mr. Valon with the school district? Mr. Valon?
Yes.
How familiar are you with the school district?
I am familiar. I'm in real estate as well. So what I meant by 10 out of 10 is like, and the value of the properties is that, for example, when people come from New York City to buy in Westchester, I mean, they look for schools like, you know, Scarsdale, Edgemont.
I said to Garrett, Greenberg is better than everyone believes. My two kids are in GCSD. Oh, wait, let me make sure.
So you go ahead, Mr. Valon, you were saying?
Yeah, and Hartsdale is one of the best towns in Westchester, and many people love just like what Hartsdale has to offer. And yeah. I'm just going by the feedback we get from people who moved to Westchester. But if that, I mean, other than that, you know, Hartsdale is absolutely one of the best towns in New York.
Well, you say other than that, are you familiar with the reason that people speculate about the Greenberg Central School District historically is largely a racist reason, because a large number of African American and non-white students attend that school. Historically, residents of Hartsdale were resistant to the integration of the school. And one of the reasons that realtors now repeat what you have repeated tonight is a vestige from a time when things were different. When white people didn't want to be around Black people and thought that the places where Black people were somehow inferior. So I would just be careful how you characterize the school district, because you may be appealing to some of the basest instincts in our society and just repeating racist rhetoric that has no place in the 21st century town of Greenberg.
May I say something?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. I think, with all due respect, Valon is speaking as a business person, and he's also basically quoting from the New York Times.
I'm not criticizing him. I'm just telling him the facts.
I know, and I'm also, I'm an educated person, sir, and I'm also a marketing person. And if you remember, if you read the article, if you recall the article that was in the Times just a couple of weeks ago, I mean, the point of the article about these 20 different towns around the New York area was about that none of them were perfect. None of them were perfect. All of them had some kind of I wouldn't use the word weakness, but obviously every town can't be perfect. And I think it's, and I certainly don't want to open up this can of worms. I think Valon is not speaking as a person who's not open-minded and fair-minded. He's speaking as someone who even, I think everyone here would agree that Hartsdale isn't Scarsdale, and that is what he is saying. He's not saying anything besides that.
May I say something?
If I could, I know that Carol Allen has had her hand up for quite some time. I just want to make sure everyone speaks.
Could you just answer one question? Who was that made those remarks about this Greenberg school system? Because I don't see that person on my screen. I wondered who was talking before Mr. Lewis said something. There was a gentleman speaking about the Greenberg school system. Can you identify that person?
Mr. Lewis didn't say anything. Mr. Jones said something.
Was it Mr. Jones who was talking about racism?
Correct.
I have to say I was very offended by those remarks. I don't think that's so. I'm very involved with the school system. It's a very—
And you have no concept of the history of the world, of the United States, of the town of Greenberg.
Excuse me. I've lived in Westchester since 1983, and before that when I was a child. So I have some knowledge of the area, and I've always found this to be a very diverse area. And I don't think that we should give Valon the impression that there is any concern among the non-Black members of the community about going to school or sending their children to school with people of color. Absolutely not.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Duquesne, may I have the floor now? This is Carol Allen.
Yeah, Carol, I was trying to get you in there. Please.
Great. Thank you so much. I live in close proximity to this Maplewood property on West Hartsdale Avenue. And on behalf of the residents in this particular section, I'd like to emphasize our concern about traffic safety. This segment of road is the most dangerous segment of West Hartsdale Avenue. The number of accidents here is documented to be higher than what is normal, expected on safe highways of similar usage. So that is a serious concern that we have, maintaining traffic safety. Regardless of the number of homes that are there, we are concerned about the number of accidents that occur. We are also concerned about maintaining the environment. The trees in this area are very mature. They serve a great function environmentally in terms of keeping the air clean, as well as keeping green in Greenberg and keeping the area temperature as low as possible given the extent of climate change that is occurring right now. We mentioned blasting. We're not so much concerned about the noise, but we are concerned about the age of many of the homes that surround the area where blasting would need to occur in order to provide adequate leveling for any building that might occur. And the other thing that was mentioned, I'd like to reemphasize, we are concerned about the effect of rainwater headed down towards the Four Corners area. Four Corners already suffers from severe flooding. This 8.5 acres that are there does absorb a significant amount of water. And we are concerned that if the trees and ground cover is removed, that would exacerbate flooding in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Okay, since there's two screens, it is easy if you use the chat function, but I'm cycling through looking for hands raised. But at the moment, there are no hands raised, nor did anyone chat that they seek to speak at this time.
Okay, so that's great. So I want to thank everybody for participating, and if you have any questions or concerns, please let us know. Maybe at one of our town board work sessions, we could invite the building inspector or the person who deals with blasting to I think Dominic Caratasola has done that over the years, to make a presentation to the community, just to keep everybody aware, make people aware of the practices that we've been following over the years to protect properties near areas that are involved in blasting, because we've had this for so many years and it's been a very, very successful law. In fact, I think Greenberg was the first community in the state to have a very strong blasting law. So, I think it would be reassuring to the community just to say, this is how we've done it. And, again, if you're worried, why don't you contact people who have experienced blasting over the past 20 or 30 years, and, you could ask them, was there the damage to their homes? Because I don't recall getting complaints. But don't take it from me. Take it from people who live near homes that experience blasting. I think since I've been supervisor, I think I've had like 2 or 3 neighbors in the entire time complain about noise.
Well, whatever blasting, if there is any blasting that's required, it's going to be far less than what the assisted living facility would have required, because they obviously don't have to go that deep. So they would be fairly shallow blasts, if there is blasting involved. Garrett, do you know whether or not the assisted living facility had done any borings to see whether or not how much blasting would be done?
Yeah, they did a lot of reviews in that regard, and while I don't think they were conclusive about whether they needed to blast or not, I think what you're indicating as far as excavation, it's pretty much assumed that would have been more involved with that type of use. I suspect that blasting would likely be required for that use, and it very well may be necessary for the single family homes. But as you and Supervisor Feiner have mentioned, we do have a very comprehensive blasting law. We have an independent blasting analyst that works directly with our building inspector, and just the monitoring is intense, and there's a lot of pinch points during the process if there's any concerns, to really just halt things and assess, and we do have a long history of success with whether it's blasting, rock chipping. Overall, what's usually sought is, the path that, gets it done in the most efficient manner. Residents, don't want to incur 9 months of chipping in lieu of, a week of a few blasts or something like that. So there's a lot of factors that go into it, but definitely a concern that would be part of the project and review process.
I also want to emphasize that our blasting law protects the developer as much as it protects the surrounding homes. The last thing you want to find out is that you've cracked the foundation of surrounding homes and you're responsible for those foundations. So our blasting law is designed to minimize the potential for that kind of damage to nearby homes by setting the intensity of the blasts so that doesn't happen, using detectors near the surrounding homes, etc. So it really works out for everyone. So even though we say it's very comprehensive, it's comprehensive in a way that benefits everybody.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. The only other question I had for Mr. Nikci, with other developments, sometimes people complain about a lot of noise early in the morning or whatever. Would you be willing to also work with the community, if the application is approved, to at least have a dialogue with them, in terms of the construction process so we could try making this as stressless as practical.
Yes, Paul, absolutely. We'll definitely work with community and make sure as this is as stressful as possible. And
Great.
again, before we go, I appreciate you putting this together. Thank you everyone for listening tonight. Thank you for your time. I know it's late in the evening. This is, as I said in the beginning, we are in the preliminary stages. Before we do anything else, we want to speak to the community and see if there is any objections, but we'll never do anything. We'll start any projects anywhere if there is not cooperation and approval from the community as well. We'd like to do this together and not just increase the value of the neighborhood, but also make the Maplewood a better project. Thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you very much for for everybody for participating in this session. And we're going to continue to keep people informed and involve people in, in the process. I've always felt that every time we've involved the community in the process from day one, it's so much smoother and it's so much, people feel they're a part of the process. They don't feel that we're forcing anything. They don't feel there's secret deals. And I just think that this is the way applications should be, proposed development should be, considered. So I'm really, thrilled and thank Maplewood and thank the developer for participating in this transparent process. Thank you. Good. So
Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Thank you so much.